doke. Now that it's recording, I just have to say, got it. Welcome, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey.
Hello, everybody.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And every week we have a different topic under that general umbrella. And the show is actually a radio show. And we broadcast on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley on Tuesdays from 7 to 8 Pacific time from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. CIVL, our radio station, requires that we mention that. But also we are a podcast, and you can catch us on all the main podcasting platforms. And we have all of the past episodes on drlesleyphillips.com. So tonight's show was in response to a request or a suggestion that came up in last week's show. And it was to do a show on dreams. So I think the precise title of what we've called it is something like The Meaning of Dreams, Premonitions and Visitations. And I thought that that was a really neat title because we've done a few different shows on dreams. We've actually never talked about visitations before. So I thought that's a really cool and different angle. So maybe I'll start by giving a definition of what a visitation type of dream is all about, and what a premonition type of dream is all about. And then we can talk about what's similar and what's different about those two types of dreams.
This topic stemmed from our show last week where we were talking about intuition, and somebody suggested it from there. And it ties in very nicely with that. And next week's will as well, which I'll let everybody know at the end of the show.
Yeah. I mean, we can do a little bit on dream interpretation as well. And I'm sure that when we get to the listeners' questions, that some people will post their dreams and ask what they mean anyway. And that will be an opportunity to talk about how to interpret dreams.
Oh, I'm sure.
So on visitations in dreams, I often have dreams like that, actually, but not necessarily scary. It feels like someone you know, except it isn't, you know. It's and it probably is someone you know somewhere on your multidimensional consciousness. So it could be someone who's unknown to you. You could have a visitation from a guide. It's also possible to have a visitation from an unpleasant kind of a being as well. So a positive, friendly guide, or some low vibration being. Also an animal. We've all had those kinds of dreams, I think, where you are being visited by some kind of an animal or interacting with some kind of an animal. It could be an animal totem guide, for example. And it's also possible to meet other versions of yourself in dreams. So have a visitation from a future version of yourself, a past version of yourself, a version of yourself in another lifetime, and to interact with other levels of your own consciousness.
Sorry. Danielle says, from my Native American perspective, dreams are the place where our ancestors or guides, family can visit us.
Exactly, Danielle, exactly. So your ancestors, your family, and your guides. So how is a visitation dream different than a premonition? So what's a premonition type of dream? So a premonition dream is where you dream something that hasn't happened yet, that's going to happen, And then as your life rolls out, it actually does happen. For most premonition dreams, the time frame on what you've dreamed about happening is usually just a matter of days. They've done studies on this, and this is what they found. So what might you have a premonition about? You could have a premonition about yourself and something that's going to happen in your own life. You could have a premonition about an event that's going to happen to you or to somebody else that you know. You might even have a premonition actually that somebody is going to pass away, and that's quite a common one. You might have a premonition about some kind of world event that you see happening on the news a few days later. You might have a dream about a particular place where the event takes place. And the characters in the dream, there may be characters, there may not be characters. It could be purely symbolic, but if there are characters in the dream, they might be known to you or they might be unknown. So, and actually there's a kind of a crossover when I think about it, to have a visitation from a loved one that includes a message which is a premonition of them passing away. All right, so we've got these two types of dreams that we're talking about tonight, visitations and premonitions. So these types of dreams tend to stand out. So I'll talk about some of the ways that I think they're similar and some of the ways that I think that maybe they're a bit different. And of course, this is just our human brain, isn't it? Categorizing things again, but still, it enables us to talk about it, doesn't it? They both can tend to feel very real, very, very real. You know, it's not one of those vague things. When you're having the dream, it's vivid, it's real. When you wake up from the dream, you remember it. So they feel real, they're vivid, they're powerful, and they're memorable, both of these types of dreams. How might they be a little bit different? And again, I'm going to generalize here. One of the differences, I think, is when it's a visitation dream, you tend to be a participant in that dream. So you are somehow interacting and communicating with the one who's visiting you. More often than not, although not always, in a premonition dream, you're more like the witness. You're more like the fly on the wall. You're watching events unfold as opposed to participating in them. Although I think there can be premonition-like dreams where you are participating in them. And I don't think you'd call it a visitation dream unless you were actually being active in it, though. So both dreams can be symbolic, as in there's symbolism in the dream. However, I would tend to think that perhaps the premonition type of dream is perhaps a bit more heavy on the symbolism, whereas the visitation dream is a bit more like a conversation, but the conversation can happen as opposed to being verbally like we would speak in our waking life. It can occur telepathically and more like a sense of knowing, or there could be some symbols in the dream. I think I mentioned last week that I had, and it wasn't a dream because I was awake, but I kind of had a visitation from my mum, and she brought a stack of books. So if that was the dream, the books would be a symbol in the dream that we could then translate into meaning. But often it's more just like a conversation. You're having a conversation with the person that's visiting you, and somehow you're knowing what it is that they're saying to you, even though they're not really speaking in the way that we would ordinarily speak. So a visitation dream can have an element of telepathy, telepathic communication. A premonition dream is more, like I said, the fly on the wall, and perhaps you're watching events unfold and you might be knowing things about them, but less likely to be telepathically communicating with a person about it. And these are generalizations. There can be emotional content in both types of dreams. And I tend to feel that the visitation dream, if it's a visitation from a deceased loved one, tends to be feelings of love, peaceful, loving connection. And whereas a premonition dream, it could be a positive emotion, but it depends on what's happening, right? So you could feel quite neutral, or you might feel afraid, depending on what's happening. So maybe a wider range of emotions might come up in a premonition dream. And we might say that both types of dream contain messages. And of course, that's specific to the dream, but a visitation from a deceased loved one, the messages often can be a message just to reassure you, the one who's still alive, that they're fine. They still exist. Their consciousness is still around and everything's fine. They might appear to you. I know when, for example, when my mum passed away, I was aware of her appearing in many different ways, actually, all different versions of herself from when she was young, even younger than before I knew her, all the way to, the age that she passed away. And so often a deceased loved one, they're not going to appear as they did when you last saw them. They're not going to be sick anymore. They might just show up in, in vibrant health, perhaps even looking a bit younger, perhaps in a period of their life that they enjoyed the most, or where you had the most fun together. And all of that is to help reassure you that they're fine. And then the premonition dream, it's not necessarily about reassuring you. It could potentially be about warning you, or giving you advanced notice of something. I went through a period in my life where I was having lots of premonition dreams, and often they were actually just to do with my life. Like if I was going to a business meeting in a few days, I would be in the business meeting in my dream, and I would be meeting the people who I was going to meet in the business meeting ahead of time. And I did that quite a lot, and actually met the people I'd never met before, looking exactly like they looked, and then met them in real life. So it can be something mundane and ordinary, just giving you advance notice of something that's coming up. Or, just warn you, maybe you're starting to get into a relationship with somebody and you have a dream that sort of says, makes you think twice about it, for example. So, with the visitation dream, it's probably less common to receive a warning, but it's possible that a deceased loved one might come in and have a word with you about something like that. The other thing I would say is often if we're doing a visitation dream, everything will feel familiar and friendly, and maybe it will even be taking place in familiar surroundings. If it's a parent, it could be the old family home, the home you grew up in. Something that just feels very familiar, a familiar place that you used to hang out together. A premonition dream could be more likely to be in an unfamiliar place. You know, you're dreaming about something that's happening in the future, maybe taking place in somewhere you've never been before, or you know, whether that's you personally, the person that you're dreaming something might happen to, or on the world stage, it could be a completely different country, for example. So I think we're heading to a good time for a break.
I think so too.
So we'll rejoin the conversation in a few minutes after we've played a few messages. Welcome back. Listeners, this is Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corrie, and tonight's show is about dreams, premonitions, and visitations. And in the first part of the show, we talked about what is a visitation dream and what is a premonition dream, and what might be similar or different about those two types of dreams. And I want to make sure I leave lots of time in tonight's show for people to post their dreams.
Oh, there's lots of questions already.
Is there?
Oh, yeah.
That's really good.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
I had a question.
Sure.
What happens if you have the same dream over and over again in the same night, but not necessarily, like some people have the same dream every night. Last night I had the same dream over and over, and like it started to get just totally monotonous, you know, like I just woke up and I said, no, stop.
Oh, that's interesting. Were there any differences each time it occurred?
Well, I could barely remember the dream now, but I was moving. It was a moving dream, moving apartments. And it was the same. It was basically a repeat over and 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 over again.
Yeah.
I can remember at least probably 15 times. It was just drove me nuts.
I'll have a look at that for you in a minute, but I'll just make a comment that one of the things that we often do in our dreams, well, I'll say two things. One thing that we can be doing in our dreams is practicing for the real event. And you'll know when you're doing that because you might try out something similar, but in 3 different ways, okay? Because that's helping you choose which way you want to play it in the physical reality situation. Sounds like your dream was a little bit different than that, and you were just going over and over again. It sounds like the kind of dream. Another thing that we'll do in dreams is we'll try and work things out. And, you know, it reminds me of that saying, what's the definition of stupidity?
Insanity.
Doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So
expecting a different result.
Expecting a different result. And I think that you were working through something within your psyche that you're a bit stuck on, trying to work your way out of it. And you said it was a moving dream. Is that what you said? It was a moving dream.
It was about moving apartments. Amanda says, Corrie, sounds like a nightmare. Well, the nightmare was when I woke up and I couldn't stop. Like I had repeated it so many times that when I woke up, I couldn't get rid of it either.
So the place where we live, the apartment or the house, is often representing our psyche and how we've got that set up. You know, we've got that set up with a framework of beliefs and so on. And so it looks like you're switching things around and you're trying to work out how you want to switch things around, what you want to change and how you want it to be different. You're changing your internal structure, your internal setup.
Sorry if you hear banging. Somebody outside is banging away on something.
Yeah, or trying to, attempting to do some healing work, really sounds like.
Yeah, it could be that too, yeah. Or we could be moving to an apartment.
No, because I didn't dream the same thing. Oh,
Oh,
well, that's
okay.
another show, you know, it's quite possible for people to share dreams, have similar dreams at the same, on the same night.
Actually, we have somebody, oh, if I can find, Amanda says, my partner and I were meditating, laying in bed with our hands over each other's. We both fell asleep at the same time. I had a feeling of falling and woke myself, and my partner did as well. We were a little shocked as to why it happened to both of us at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great example of what I was just talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so it's often people that you are in sync with, that you are very close to, that you already have a kind of telepathic connection, and you were both lying very close to each other, going into the process of leaving the body at the same time. And so and often when we're coming back into the body, it's experienced as a falling dream. So I think you said that you moved, and that's what woke you both up. So you both were sort of stimulated into bringing your astral body back into the physical body at the same time. Sounds like. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so shall we go to another question, or did you have some more to?
Well, I just want to notice that on Facebook that Brian is saying that he and his dad had the same dream. So another example of that.
I've been unable to confirm if it was at the same time. That would be a great show. Okay, we'll call your dad.
Yeah. So lots of people doing examples now. Natasha's posted about a beautiful dream that she shared. Being on a mothership and seeing beautiful nebulas with her twin. That sounds lovely. Well, the only other thing, Corey, to answer your question that I would mention is a little bit about dream interpretation, but that will probably come out as we answer people's questions. I would say a very simple technique for interpreting your dream is to ask the following questions. What was the main standout symbol? And what was the main emotion? That's a general dream interpretation thing. I think when it comes to these specific types of dreams, the visitation dream is a very particular type of dream. And so I think you would look at, you know, can I take sort of a literal message from the dream, from what the person said to me? And if not, what was the main symbol and the main emotion, and go from there. And the premonition, if it's not obvious that, oh, the Twin Towers are going to blow up tomorrow, again, what was the main symbol and the main emotion that you felt? That's a good starting place for any dream interpretation. But apart from that, let's dig into people's questions.
Yeah, Brian was just expanding on his dream as well, jumping around a little bit here, but he's just said it was a little while later he found out his dad had the same dream.
I'll mention sometimes in families there will be a particular dream symbol. So in my family, the dream of losing a tooth is a premonition that somebody is going to pass away. So for example, when my grandmother died, my father's mother, I had a dream a really vivid dream that my tooth fell out, and I felt like I'd lost my tooth, and I was very upset in the dream that I'd lost my tooth, and I woke up quite disturbed. And then my grandmother was in hospital, and my father was on holiday. And when he came back, I was waiting to drive him to the hospital because this was about to happen. And he said, it was in the days before cell phones, by the way. So he walked in the door, and I said, oh, I've got to take, and he said, I know, my mother, it's my mother. I had a dream where I lost my tooth. And so he had the dream where he lost his tooth. And I had, at that time, I didn't know that the missing tooth dream meant someone was going to pass away. But he said, well, yeah, that's a dream in our family that we have when someone's about to pass away. So he and I both had the losing a tooth dream at the same time about my grandmother's death. So there can be symbols that will recur as a specific message. And of course, it's not the same for everyone. So these big dream dictionaries where you go, oh, this is what that means. Oh, that's what this means. I wouldn't recommend that. Rather, it's like, what does that symbol mean to you? You know, and it might be that there's a symbol that has a meaning in your family, for example, like in my story I just told.
Lovely. Shall we move on?
Sure.
This is from Prasad. Prasad emailed these. He has two questions. I'll give you one question because I'm not 100% sure what he means by his first question. So his question, I see a sort of a spirit machine hovering above me, which is sucking everything, all my rituals I do during my readings, my meditation, prayers, and puja. And puja is a worship ritual performed by Hindus, Buddhists to offer devotional homage and prayer to one or more deities, to host and honor a guest, or to celebrate an event. So he's got something sort of sucking his energy, or spirit hovering above, is sucking everything, all of his rituals.
Okay. And that's in a dream, that there's a spirit machine hovering above his head and sucking all of the rituals that he's performing. I kind of like this dream, and I feel this dream is about helping you make a direct connection with source rather than have anything in between, like a ritual. So I feel like it's telling you that, I mean, the rituals are great, that, you know, that they can work for you, but actually you don't need them, that you can have a direct line to divine source energy. So I'm seeing that it's this idea of sucking everything that's in excess, unnecessary, maybe even sort of taking up, you know, time and energy, and saying, you know what, you can just connect directly. That's what I see when I look at that. You're telling yourself that it's unnecessary, that you can connect with God regardless of that.
This is from Carol. Carol says, how can you tell difference in the visit from a guide versus being from another dimension, versus a being from another dimension?
Well, what says the guide can't be from another dimension? We like to just categorize things, don't we? This is this and that's that. And, you know, to talk and interact with each other, that's what we do. But often your guides are from a higher dimension, or a parallel or a parallel reality. So I don't think you need to particularly make a point of knowing that. I think the main question is this benevolent? Is this a benevolent messenger for me? And if yes, then trust the information. And if no, you know, like anything else, you don't have to take in the information. So let me see if there's anything else to say about that. Yeah. Most of my guides are not from 3-4D. They're not from 3-4D reality. They are from different dimensions, higher dimensions, other reality, you know, interconnected realities, but not the same as the one we're experiencing.
True, true. Thank you. This is from Brian. Brian says, I had a visitation dream from people. I've had visitation dreams from people still alive, especially people I haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, because I didn't have that on my initial description, did I? But absolutely, that is another type of visitation dream. We can dream of somebody who's still alive, and they can just be visiting us, just saying hi, just hanging out with each other. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're visiting you with, you know, bad news about themselves. So thank you for pointing that out. We'll add that to the list. Yes. Types of visitation dreams.
Okay, this is from Christine. Christine says, I had the dream of the golden eagle after hearing one and not knowing what I heard. I heard strange sound at night. Then I had a very vivid dream about a golden eagle. I Googled the sound, and it was an exact match. I'd never heard one before, and they are super rare here. It was pretty cool. Did the eagle visit mean something?
That rings a bell. I feel like I've been asked this question before. Maybe I'm having deja vu, where I've had that as in a dream. I'll take a look. Well, what I'm getting is a few things. One is that the eagle's representing taking a higher perspective, a bird's eye view, a higher perspective. You know, the eagle flies way above. So it's like being on the mountaintop looking down, rather than being in the valley, you know, where we can't see very much. If we're like an eagle, we've got this 10,000 foot view. So part of it is about taking a higher perspective. So if you're down in the details of something, feeling really serious about it, or feeling trapped and there's no way out, you know, taking that higher perspective, then you can, you know, see that you're not trapped, or see that there's a way out, as an example. So that seems like part of it. The other part of it feels like it's relating to transformation. And I kind of got the idea of a phoenix connection with the golden eagle. And so this idea of rebirth, actually more like rebirth. And finally, when I looked at your eagle, I felt like the eagle was carrying, it's interesting, it was like very vague, because I think the dream was a while ago now, and I think you've probably already been processing it, but it felt like this shadowy, almost like this shadowy sphere, reminded me of the planet, kind of grayish, shadowy. And did you, I don't know, whoever's watching, if you saw my screen flash then, that usually happens when I'm saying something poignant. I've been getting lots of phenomena like that lately. Anyway, so it felt like it was also, in order for that transformation and change to happen, that you were letting go. And you were letting go of old programming and its planetary programming that's being let go of. But you are on this planet, and so you are participating within yourself of letting go of that matching energy. So it felt like it was taking a higher perspective, and the fact that you're in the process of change. And also just feels very auspicious. What a lovely, beautiful bird to be dreaming of.
That brings us to another break.
Okie dokie, folks, we'll be back after a few more messages. Welcome back. Welcome back to tonight's edition of Unlocking Your Truth, which is about dreams, premonitions, and visitations. And we're really enjoying hearing everybody's dreams.
Yep. Me too. Christine says, thank you. I always value your insights. So this one is from Katie. Katie says, I had a vivid dream the other day that I visited an alternate reality or another world or the future or all of the above. I was still me as I am today, and my best friend and other familiar faces were there to welcome me. In short, it was amazing and I was in awe. After my orientation, I unintentionally visited my past, and I was worried that my sister and ex would notice I'm different. They didn't. Then I had some epiphanies about how I got there and was able to leave. How are dreams like this premonitions or visitations? Do you have any feedback or reading about my dream?
That sounds like a fantastic dream. It sounds lovely. So yeah, you're trying to fit the question in with tonight's theme. Let me just look at your dream in general. I feel like, so, I mean, here's another thing that happens when we're dreaming and when we're asleep, that we are in fact visiting those higher dimensional levels ourselves, right? We're traveling out of the body, we're leaving behind 3D reality, and we are connecting with ourselves and other members of our soul group, often at a higher level of consciousness. So it feels like it was an awareness of higher dimensional reality, and that all of those relationships with the people that you love, like your best friend, are existing at that level of consciousness. That these are members of your soul group, and you're connected in that higher dimensional level. And I wonder if it felt very, you said you felt in awe. Awe was the main emotion, awe and wonder at this amazing reality. And then you said that you ended up visiting your past self. So again, it's an example of what we were saying at the very beginning of the show, that in dreams, you can visit the past or the future, or old versions of yourself or old past versions of other people. So I think that this dream is an example of all of that. And, you know, could we call it a visitation dream? I mean, I guess we could, in the sense that you were connecting with other souls that you're connected with in this life. But I feel it's more about you recognizing that you exist beyond the physical realm, and that your connections with the people you know in the physical realm also exist in these higher dimensions of reality. So that's what I think I would say about your dream, Katie, but thank you for sharing it. Sounds like a wonderful dream.
Thank you. And this is from Carol. Carol said, I had a visitation premonition of my deceased cousin who I'm not close to came to my dream, and I told his sister the next day, and she told me it's his birthday the next day. That was interesting.
Yeah, very validating. That's not really a question, but thank you for sharing.
I would call that a premonition, though.
Yeah. Well, I would call that,
Both, actually.
well, yeah, it's a visitation dream. And I guess kind of a premonition in that you didn't know it was his birthday.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. This is from Amanda. Amanda says, my son had a dream about people protesting and being in front of a courthouse. Then the Black Lives Matter movement happened.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Do you think kids get more dreams that are premonitions, visitations than adults?
I don't think that they get more or less, but I do think that they may remember them more easily because they have fewer barriers and censorship filters on what's important to them. And so, and kids are still more playful and fluid between what you might think of a more imaginary world, even though it's as real as this one, you know, and this world. So, and the adults are also busy running around, aren't they, thinking of their responsibilities. So I think we all are constantly having these experiences, but the degree to which we remember them consciously can differ.
Okay, this is from Carol. Carol says, what does it mean when I had a dream within a dream?
Yeah, that's a really, that's really cool. And a dream within a dream, that's you experiencing your multi-dimensional nature. You are a multi-dimensional being. Okay, so here we are embedded in our physical bodies in the physical world, and everything's so linear, and we put it all in boxes and we understand it, you know, but that's an illusion. And you, at the greater part of your being, is multidimensional consciousness that exists in multiple realities simultaneously. And so a dream within a dream is an example of you starting to experience your multi-dimensional nature. And be curious about whether you were dreaming that you were dreaming, I guess, and having a dream within the dream that you were dreaming. Which is very cool, you know. So it's demonstrating to you that reality is not necessarily all that it seems from the waking consciousness. There's a really cool example of a dream like that in my Intuition and Chakras book, of a friend of ours, and somebody lent her a crystal skull and she slept with it next to her bedside table, and she had, and I'm sure a lot of you have had a dream like this. She dreamed that she woke up, it was morning, she got up, she got showered, she got dressed, she cleaned her teeth, she had her breakfast. And then she went, oh, actually, I'm still dreaming. Well, I better get up. And then she got up, you know, cleaned her teeth and had a shower, got dressed, had her breakfast. And then she went, oh no, I'm actually still dreaming. Oh, okay, now I'll get up. And then she repeated this many times. And then eventually she started noticing there was a green glow coming from her bedroom, coming from this crystal skull. And so then she started saying, okay, no, I'm still dreaming because I can see the green glow. This went a bit like Corey's dream that he was saying. It went on and round and round and round. And who knows if she said, I don't even, like, who knows if I actually really woke up.
Yeah, I remember that. That was something. She was quite freaked out about that. This is another question from Carol. She says, should I be aware of something significant if I had a visitation dreams of beings I don't know? It's a little bit like Brian's question.
Well, I think I need a bit more information about what was occurring with those beings, what communication you were having. But, you know, I mean, Carol is in one of my psychic development classes, if it's the same Carol, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you can use your clairvoyance to look at the dream. You could ask this a simple yes/no question of whether it's important for you to know more information about it or not. Yeah, without knowing the specifics of the dream, but it just could be you making, to me, it looks like you making connection with it just looks like you making connection with like I'm saying exactly what you said, so I'm just like just making connection with a group of beings. It doesn't look, it's just like saying hello to some old friends or some people that you know, even though you, from your consciousness here, you're like, well, I don't know them. But remember, you're a multidimensional being. And so there's all sorts of connections that we have with groups of souls that we may or may not be consciously aware of. So it looks like you were just connecting in with that group, saying hello. They were saying hello to you.
Interesting. Excuse me. This is from Brian. Brian says, do visitation dreams take place on a different astral plane, different from our regular dreamscape? I wonder if that's partly why they're easier to remember.
That's a good question. And my answer to that would be, I believe that they could take place at different vibrational levels. So I wouldn't say all visitation dreams happen in the same, what we would call a place, even though it's not really a place. I think that you could have a visitation dream at different vibrational levels of consciousness, and it probably just depends on you, the person that you're having the visitation with, and your mutual vibration. I think the answer to that is not necessarily, and it depends.
It all depends, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, don't forget to give us a like if you're enjoying the show. Whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube, just give us a little click there so that show us that you're enjoying the evening. So another question from Carol. Carol's got some good questions. I had the same dream, like what Corey said, over and over again, but not in one night, but the same dream came back from time to time. I had a bad experience in that dream where our family home got broken into a few times. I got really scared.
Okay, so the main symbol is the family home being broken into, and the main feeling or emotion is being scared or feeling fear. So to interpret this dream, we'd have to ask you some questions like, was there an actual time when your family home was broken into, perhaps when you were a child? And if the answer to that is yes, then you know you're reliving that experience for some reason. If the answer to that is no, then we look at, well, what is that a symbol of? What is it a symbol for your family home to be broken into?
She said, yes, my family home got broken into.
Yeah. Okay, so then it sounds like you're replaying that experience to help you work through how scared you felt. I mean, I wonder how old you were when that happened. So that's the dream where you are, just replaying the tape to try and work your way through letting go of the fear.
So this is from SG. SG says, I had a dream about I had a dream about my neighbor being at a women's retreat and getting her life together, losing weight, and I felt jealous and envious. Is this dream a reflection of work I need to do for myself?
Oh, that's an interesting dream. Yeah, so we would, if that woman is the main symbol, we'd want to ask you, what do you normally feel about that woman? What does she represent to you? What does that woman represent to you? Because whatever she represents to you, she could be mirroring an aspect of yourself back at you, yes. So she said the neighbor went to a women's retreat and lost weight and got her life in order. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a self-reflective dream where that woman is representing an aspect of you. And yes, I feel like I'd need a bit more information about your relationship with that woman and what she represents to you. The feeling of jealousy. Yeah, I mean, it just looks like it's representing something that you were desiring and wanting for yourself, but perhaps feel like you can't have. And so you're trying to work that through in the dream.
Hey, not much time left. Natasha has a comment. She's interesting that these dream symbols can be shared within a family.
Yeah.
Then a question from Misty says, does the moon affect your dreams? I noticed around the full moon, I dream so much.
That's an interesting question. Well, there are lots of beliefs around the full moon. Lots of beliefs around the full moon being a magical time or a time to do certain rituals and things, that it's an opening and a gateway to enter the unseen. So it might be that you are just taking a ride on that as a way of permitting yourself to dream more and remember your dreams. But also, as we all know, the moon has an effect on the tides on our planet and supposedly has an effect on our bodies are mostly made of water. So, you know, I think the answer to that question is for you, yes, it seems like it does. Would that be the same for everybody? It might not, because there might be people who, I don't know, don't believe in the power of the moon, and they probably wouldn't dream more at that time. I'm saying it's true for you, and it's probably true for other people. I wouldn't make a blanket statement that it's true for everyone. Let's answer it that way.
And that brings us to the end of our evening.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And what are we doing next week, Corey?
We're going to do something around food and intuition.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so get your questions ready.
Yeah, we've done one post on that before, but I think we should do another one.
Sure.
Anyway, folks.
Thank you, everybody. See you next